Hello and welcome to the I Am Woman project, where every week we have deep, thought-provoking and interesting conversations with thought leaders, change instigators, rule breakers and creative minds who think differently, sparking creativity and inspiration. Our special guests on our show cover a variety of topics just for you, and they share their personal stories to inspire, motivate and empower you, our listener. The I Am Woman podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at www.catherineplano.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favourite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. How exciting. Today we have the lovely Chiquita Searle. She has certainly experienced a life on both sides of the career spectrum, swapping a lucrative corporate job in Queensland from mining to fashion. Handpicked from dozens of wishful candidates to launch the league's first Queensland branch as the Queensland Crusader in August 2012. Within 12 months, Chiquita was offered the opportunity to relocate to Melbourne and take on the role as the league's general manager to oversee the group's national growth. Now in 9 locations within Australia, the League of Extraordinary Women is Australia's largest and fastest growing movement of driven and dynamic female entrepreneurs. Let's get into it, shall we? Okay, Chiquita, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's an absolute honour to have you here today. How are you today?
Thanks, Catherine. I'm great, and I just want to say thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Oh, no, it's absolutely fine. So what I'd like to speak to you about is really understand how did the League of Extraordinary Women begin for you? Like, what inspired you?
I actually didn't found it. It was 4 girls, Searle, Sarah, Marie and Liz, back in 2011. They connected randomly at an entrepreneurial event, and I think there was about 500 in the room. There were a handful of women, and they just started chatting at a break and just started to talk, because all of them work in their business with their partners, their male partners. So each of them was saying, "Oh, I would just wish I had other friends who I could talk to about it, who knew what the challenges that I was experiencing." And they just thought, well, I've met you all now, so let's just hold our own little event. And so they decided to do that, and they actually booked one table in a bar one night and just expected to get 8 or 9 women to it. They didn't really expect too much. And they put an event up on Facebook and promoted it, just sharing the event through their own networks, and within I think 2 weeks 160 tickets had sold, so they actually had to book out the whole venue.
Wow.
And it just has grown from there, and it started off as a hobby for them, sort of a side project, because each of them needed it personally, so they just joined together to do it. But I don't think any of them realized where it would go and how much it was needed by other women, so it's been a little bit of a shock, I think, for them, but a great one because they love it. And but I came on board as the first Brisbane Crusader. So I found it, I came on board in August 2012. Right. So I've been on board since then.
Excellent. And how did they come up with the name, League of Extraordinary Women? I love it.
I have asked that actually, because people do ask, how did you come up with that name? And none of them can remember. They just said, I don't know. I think they were just brainstorming one day and it was kind of just thrown in there, and they all just went, oh, yeah, that would be good. I mean, it's a long name, especially when you're trying to type it in an email for the first time. But we get a lot of play just based on the name itself. Whenever I meet someone and say, oh, I'm part of the League of Extraordinary Women, it always instigates, a question, or, tell me more about that, because it's a real point of difference.
So talk us, because I know that you've actually written a couple of articles which I absolutely loved reading about, like your journey through this. Talk us through a little bit about your journey from when you started to where you are now.
In terms of my own businesses? Or?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, from your the business.
Well, I've been involved in 3 of my own businesses, the first 2 with co-founders, and then my label was the one that I ran myself, and that was how I actually found the league, actually, because I was feeling quite lonely and bored. Oh, not bored. I was never bored. I was working quite a lot. Go on. But lonely and isolated. So I've always wanted to have my own label. I've always loved clothes. I used to spend my money, my textbook money, actually at university that mum and dad would give me to buy textbooks on clothes. And then I would call my sister and say, Carly, can you please give me your credit card number? I need to buy my textbooks. It's my exam next week. And she'd do it for me. But I've always loved clothes and I always knew that that's something that I wanted to do. So I've just decided to do it one time. I asked myself a question. I was just going through actually a really hard patch in my life. Was coming out of a business with my ex-partner, and I sort of thought to myself, God, what is I want to do? And I thought, when I'm 50, what would I regret not doing? And it was always that label. I just always wanted to have my own label. And so I did it. And I loved it. It was hard work because people think fashion is a glamorous industry. It's actually not. It's actually a lot of hard work, and trying to produce and manufacture in Australia is actually very expensive. And I was in the position where I didn't know how to pattern make. I can't even sew on a button. So I was obviously having to pay other people to do the samples and to make the clothes. So that was an expensive exercise. But it was just great and I loved it. But again, I was in the same position as the girls. I didn't have any friends who had their own businesses. I would often bring my parents in tears but again, they would try and support me, but they wouldn't understand sort of what I was going through from a personal view. So I just Googled one day women networking groups, and the league came up, and it was only in Melbourne and Sydney at that point. And I reached out to them. And I said, if you're ever coming to Brisbane, let me know. I'd love to be involved. And Cheryl wrote back and said, yep, we're coming later in the year. Stay in touch. So I did, and became their first Crusader. But I didn't expect to, because Crusaders tend to run the communities for 12 months. So I certainly didn't expect for the girls to offer me a national role. So that was really quite shocking. It was out of left field, and it was quite an investment for them as well, because they're thinking, do we keep this as a hobby? Because it had grown so much. And they thought, well, do we keep this as a hobby, or do we actually try and do something with this and actually make it something that's worthwhile? And we see how many people it's actually helping. And I think that we could genuinely make a difference with it. So it was all a bit of a leap of faith for all of us. So we all just got on board. And then after about 4 months of trying to do my label and the league full time, I almost had a nervous breakdown. And I just closed my label. I was getting so much love and joy out of the league that's where my heart ended up being. So I actually closed my business to do the league.
That's amazing. And so these get-togethers, these were events that were run nationally, and you obviously invited guest speakers to come to these events?
Yeah, so one of the points of difference, I think, and why they have been so successful is that we don't class them as networking events. We class them because we want women to come along and actually make genuine connections. So we don't encourage people to come along and bring business cards or do the swap or anything like that. It's more about coming along, meeting other women who are going through a similar thing and actually making a genuine connection and finding a friend rather than potentially a new client. And I think if the friendship is there, then potentially business can come out of it. But it's more the support and the inspiration through the speakers. So we've always because entrepreneurship, I mean, when the girls started it 4 years ago, I think that entrepreneurship word, especially around female entrepreneurs, it was still very new. And it's come a long way in the last 4 years. I think this rise of women starting their own businesses and really starting to think about what that I want to do with my life, what's my passion, how can I monetize this? I don't want to be on the corporate wheel anymore, but how can I start my business? I don't know about business. I've never done this before. So who do I talk to about it? It's about that connection and talking to others and saying, I don't know how to do this. Have you done this? Have you experienced this? And with our speakers, we ask them to be really genuine. We invite them along not because they're trying to sell a book or because they are getting paid. None of our speakers are paid. They just genuinely want to pay it forward, and they've come along because they have been successful, but the success has come through hard work and often a lot of heartache, because business can sometimes be the most toughest thing you do. And we've heard from people who've almost who've sold DVDs out the back of their cars as a single mum with 2 little boys, and others who've had to mortgage their house or take the kids out of private school, or have lost relationships because of it, had to make the choice. There's always something that they've had to overcome. And I think people, when you hear about what other people have gone through and that they've found it hard as well, but they've actually come out of it and they've come to the other side and they're really successful. You think, oh, if she can do that, I can do that. I mean, I'm going through this now, but if I can see where she is now, this is where I want to be. And it just gives you that connection and that inspiration and that, I guess, urge to keep going, because there's nothing special about any of us. We're just doing the best we can. And if you can see other women that are doing well and you've got that support network to keep you pushing forward, then it makes sense.
I absolutely agree, because I think there's that human side when you see somebody, because
Yes.
sometimes you look up to somebody and go, wow, this person is amazing. And it's not till you actually hear this story, you actually do. And connection is the number one human need. And when you make that connection and that emotional connection, because they've gone through hardship that you maybe can relate to, it's very empowering.
Well, that's exactly right. And people think that businesses are overnight success stories. And you've heard that saying, behind every successful business is 10 years of hard work. And it often is. And you'll talk to people that are now successful, but they didn't draw a wage for 3 years and they lived on $50 a week, and they lived on savings, and they had no income, and it was scary, and they had to move out of their house, and they had to sell a car, and all these stories that you don't hear about, or they had to get these massive loans from the bank just to keep going. People don't hear that often because when you get the PR spin or the marketing spin, you want to present a certain way, and you don't get the nitty-gritty of what actually goes on behind the scenes and the emotions that are tied to all of these actions and to the day-to-day grind. I think people really underestimate how much grit and strength is required to actually overcome these hurdles. And without people to talk to, I think without connecting to people to help you and support you, you're actually setting yourself up for failure, because that's part and parcel of the success journey, is because you attach to someone and to others who actually understand what you're going through and who are going to pick you up, and they're going to push you forward, and they're not going to let you give up. And that's, I think, just so key to anyone who's successful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I myself, worked in the corporate environment for 22 years and decided to give it all up and start my own business. And it took me a long time before I actually made money, but the first 12 months I made nothing, absolutely nothing. And I think that when you go through these things, when you're working with a corporation where they do the marketing, they support you, they've got your back, then all of a sudden you're on your own, it can be quite scary. And then all your demons come up. Am I worthy of this? Do I belong here?
Can I do this?
That's it.
Am I smart enough for this? I mean, am I better off as an employee? It's just all, it is. It's the fear. It's the self-doubt. It's that nagging voice that tells you to give up. And because when you have a job, you have the paycheck, the regular paycheck that comes in, and you have problems still. Obviously, we all have problems, but it's a different set of problems than actually having to hustle to get your own money through the door. And especially if you've got team members, if you've employed a team, you actually have to pay them first. You'll be the one who gets paid last, and often there may not even be money left to pay yourself. So that's just what you do.
So true. Absolutely so true. I love it. So what about if you could do anything differently, what would that be in regards to your career?
It's kind of a double-edged sword, because when I think about some things, I could easily say them, but then I think, well, if I'd done that differently, then I wouldn't be here. I would have taken a completely different path, and I actually really love what I'm doing. So I think I just have to be grateful for the lessons and the mistakes I've made, because it's actually gotten me to where I am today, and I'm still making mistakes very regularly. I don't know if I'd change it. Actually, with my label, I spent a lot of money on things I didn't really need to spend money on. So I spent a lot of money on branding and things like that, and a really expensive website that actually didn't end up selling anything. So things like that, I think I made some really bad financial decisions because I spent a lot of money on things that I thought needed to. But now in the days of Shopify and things like that, you literally do not need to spend a lot of money on your website. You can do it, or Squarespace, you can do it yourself for, $60 a month, if that. And
Absolutely.
Branding, I think I didn't know about Elance or Odesk, so I would have found a much cheaper branding agency on there had I had the sense or the resources or knew about it. So I think you can do a lot with very, very little, but I was of the mindset that, no, I have to have this perfect brand, and I have to have this perfect website, and I have to do all this. So I think I learned a really big lesson with that. And the league, we run very, very leanly. So I've actually had to really learn about, okay, do we really need to spend this? Is this really something that we need, or is this just a want? So that's been a really, really good lesson for me. And I think anyone starting in a business, make sure you're just not spending money where you don't have to, because cash is king.
Absolutely. I mean, and these days you can actually have virtual assistants for $10 an
Oh,
hour,
or
which is
cheaper.
fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yes. And I think I agree with you. I think that, in our career, it is about receiving. I mean, you wouldn't be where you are today without all of those experiences. And, I
Exactly.
don't believe them. I don't believe in failure. I really look at as everything that occurs in our life is feedback. Feedback
Yes.
so that you know that next time what not to do.
Yeah. And I just think they're probably, as long as you're getting the lesson, I think it's fine to make mistakes as long as you're learning the lesson. But if you're making the same one over and over again, I think that's where you probably need to think about what you're doing.
Yes.
I'm a big believer in making mistakes and having a supportive environment to do that. But just as long as you're learning the lesson and not doing it too many times.
I agree. Absolutely. So what's the best piece of advice that you've had ever received?
I think I just said it. Cash is king.
Cash is king.
Always have cash in the bank.
Okay.
But yeah, I just think just be really mindful how you spend your money, especially when you're starting out. I think, it's so easy to spend it because if you're coming from a corporate environment or you've had access to a big marketing budget or a big product development budget, I think not having that and having to spend it yourself, just ask yourself the question is, do I really, really need to spend this? Because with marketing these days, look at Instagram. Look at how many people have built businesses on the back of their Instagram accounts, which are free. It's free. So I think if you've got a really beautiful visual product, definitely utilize those kinds of things. And accessing bloggers and social influencers these days, I think is so much more effective and cheaper than your typical marketing like your print and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I've been guilty of that too, where I have spent, $10, $12,000 on PR or media agency. And, nowadays you hear people, they can get great engagement through, Instagram,
amazing.
through Facebook. And there's a lady I was speaking to the other day. She's actually within 12 months has 17,000 followers just from the content that she's putting out there. Absolutely
it's
amazing.
Incredible.
It blows
I
my
met a
mind.
lady actually from Brisbane recently at the e-commerce conference here in Melbourne, and she was had built. I think she's been doing because she's got an online magazine. And it's all about interior design and styling, and she really loves minimalist styling. And I met her, and she has built this massive Instagram following, but still hasn't. And has only decided, and this is 4 years later, and has only decided now when I think she's got over 60,000 now, but she's only decided now to actually monetize it and make money off the back of it. And I just thought the patience you have displayed, I am really, really impressed.
And it's amazing. And the thing is, there's organisations that look at that. If you've got a large following,
people pay.
Yeah, absolutely, they pay. Or they want to do some sort of arrangement, cross-marketing.
Collaboration.
Yes.
This is, where it's all happening these days. The amount of people that I see on Instagram, I hadn't heard of them before, but they've got these massive followings, and now they're doing collaborations with huge brands. And I just think, whoa.
Absolutely.
It's so impressive. And I love that it's just that people can access people who may not have a design background, but because they're being discovered for their natural talents rather than it's not about who you know as much anymore. It's so much more transparent, and I really love that.
Yeah, I agree. So another question for you, Chiquita. What is the greatest lesson that you've ever learnt?
Oh, what's my greatest lesson? I think one of my greatest lessons is the power of positivity. I think that you can overcome anything if you approach it with a really positive mindset. And sometimes it can actually be really tough, especially when you're going through a tough month but if you can actually take whatever you need out of it and actually approach it with just positivity. And I actually have a positivity routine that I do that I don't do it daily, but I certainly do it when at least 3-4 times a week. And I do it morning and night. So night before I go to bed, and morning when I wake up. And I read a daily mantra. It includes my goals. There's a quote that is called Can I swear?
You can do what you like.
It's called Unfuckwithable. So I found it on Instagram and I wrote it out, and it's just basically just about when you're truly at peace with yourself, then nothing anyone says or does or can touch you, and no negativity can hurt you. So it's just about just truly being in your space and knowing that you can do whatever you need to do, just you put your mind to it. So I go through this positivity routine, and actually sets me up for the day. And especially if I am having a bit of a hard time at work or things aren't going as well as I want them to, I just regroup with the positivity. And I just think it's just so important to believe in yourself and just have that there, because I think if you let because we all have the bad days and the negativity and the self-doubt, but if you can overcome that and call yourself on it and not listen and pull yourself up on it and just read these things. And I also have affirmations, so I'm a big fan of John DeMartini. I love him, and I've read The Breakthrough Experience recently, so if anyone is in business at all, I would highly recommend reading it. And it was amazing, and it's about setting your purpose statement for your life, which I read every day, and it's got you're setting your own affirmations about what's purposeful for you and why you're doing what you're doing. Because I think if you're in business for yourself, you need to really love it, you need to be passionate about it, and need to be attached to sort of a deep core desire to help in some way. And I think if you can remind yourself about that and just reconnect with that really regularly, I think that is just such a powerful tool to take into any situation, and will help you overcome some stuff. And when otherwise you might give up if you didn't have access to it. So that for me is just probably something that I rely on really heavily, and it's something I can do for myself. I don't need anyone to help me with that. It's something that I can do to get me in that space. And I think if everyone can provide that space for themselves, I think that's really, really powerful.
Absolutely. I call that standing in your truth. That's why when you were asking me if you can swear, I said absolutely whatever you like, because I really think that it's to be authentic and to stand in your personal power is standing in your truth.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you do that every day. I do a similar thing. I call it a mission statement, and I do it at night time before I go to bed, because it's the last thing I plant, or the last piece of information I plant into my brain, and then the first thing I wake up, I do the same thing. Yes. And what it does, it creates, it sets the intention for your day.
Oh, it does, and that intention is actually really important, because you can, if you wake up grumpy or on the wrong side of the bed, you take that attitude into work, and you might affect your team with it. You've always got to make sure that you rally, or that you have something that you can do for yourself that you can draw strength from. Because I just think positivity, it can change any situation for the better, and I just think that in business you really, really need that.
Absolutely, and I actually spoke about this today. With every adversity, there is a seed of opportunity, and it's from Napoleon Hill. And I live by that, because when something goes wrong, I just think, what is the opportunity out of this? Yes. Rather than focusing on what's been going wrong, I think there's an opportunity that's about to be presented to me.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I don't believe in coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. It's just how you approach it and what you take from it that is the important thing.
Absolutely. You're my soul sister. We are so similar. It's not funny. So I can hear you're so...
Well, we both have blonde curly hair. I don't know if you've noticed.
But yours is much better. It's gorgeous. Absolutely.
It's all in the product.
Oh, yes, I know. I spend a lot of money on products, don't you worry. Quite often I have people say, what do you use on your hair? And I said, really? Do you have an A4 piece of paper so I can actually give you a list? There's lots. Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
So you've got a lot of passion. You can see you're very motivated. What is the driver, the why you do what you do?
For me, it's all about empowering women. I just want to help women in some way. And even when I had my label, I remember reading another John DeMartini book called Inspired Destiny, and he had you go through some similar activities to help you define what you're meant to be doing in life, because I'm a big believer in purpose and living on purpose and finding what that is for you and what it means. And even then it was all about making women feel really strong and powerful in their business or in their corporate roles. And because I always believe that if you feel good, you just take that positivity and that confidence into every aspect of your life. It just flows on, and it was all about empowering women. And then it's just that through my label I found the league, and again this is about empowering women. So for me, my core purpose, I believe, is about helping women, and I want them to live lives that are meaningful. And I think that's so important, because I think I I've known people who are really unhappy in their jobs, or they're really unhappy in some aspect of their life, and they feel there's no way out, or there's no way to change that. And I just don't believe that, because I was in a similar situation and I changed it for myself, and it was bloody hard, but you just do it, and you've got the power to do that. But I just think if you can support yourself with other women, I think that's just really key. And I just want to help women, because I think we're amazing, and that's it.
No,
Full stop.
Yes, I can relate to that. I think too, I always look at, women as such natural carers, and they're so selfless that they sometimes, and quite often, a lot of the women that I work with, when I ask them a simple question, what is it that you want? They
really struggle to define it.
Absolutely. Find it really hard.
Yeah. But that's the thing, I've been in that situation myself, so I understand it. And it is a lot of soul searching. It is a lot of going down the wrong path sometimes to find the right path. Because I used to change jobs every 6 to 9 months in my 20s, because I was just constantly looking for something that I wasn't finding, and no amount of money I was earning could actually fill that hole. And I was just always looking for something bigger and better, because I thought that's what would make me happy. But it's not until you really truly connect with what you're meant to be doing that you realize actually money doesn't matter. And it's just that when you're doing what you're meant to be doing, you do it voluntarily. Yeah, you really would. And sometimes when you have your own business, you are doing it as a volunteer, because you don't get paid. So you need that passion to keep moving yourself forward, because you need to really connect with it at quite a deep level.
Well, I think that you mentioned it before. If you're on purpose and you are doing what you love to do, you never work a day in your life. So, and that driver underneath all of that is your passion.
And I think the thing is with me, I think the money, when you're doing what you're meant to be doing and you love it, because you love it, you will be naturally quite good at it. And the money will come as a byproduct, and you'll find that you actually do get paid very handsomely to do what you love, because you are on purpose. So, I just think it all flows and all fits together once you've found your thing. But I think the thing is, don't ever let go of finding it. If you haven't quite found it, just know that it is there. You just have to keep looking.
Absolutely. You're very inspiring. Let me ask you, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? I think I am most inspired by women who, or probably anyone actually, but particularly women, because I obviously the league is all about women, and so I hear from a lot of women. I hear their stories. Those who have actually overcome quite a lot of adversity. They've actually had to dig deep, and they've self-funded it. They've built it themselves. They've had to sacrifice, and they've gone through hell to actually get to where they are. And I just think, and it's just, I think we're all quite ordinary, but we're just doing something extraordinary with our lives. And I just think that, if I can talk to so many women, and I'll take something away from each of them that I think, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. That's just amazing. So I don't necessarily follow any big names as such. It's more about the women in our community, or the speakers at our different breakfasts who speak about what they've had to do, that I think, oh, wow, that's just quite incredible.
Those that have pulled your heartstrings, that you've made that connection.
Yeah, I just think that just some of those because there is adversity, there's always going to be some form of adversity, and I always really relate to those who are brave enough to share it, because I think sometimes we do often care about what others think of us, so we want to put our best foot forward, and we want to maybe put a little bit of a spin on something because it makes us feel better, and we don't necessarily want to bear our warts and all to others, because God forbid, what if they think worse of me? So for those people who actually have the courage to do that, and to go, actually, no, I made this huge mistake and it was bloody tough, but I managed to get out of it, and this is how I did it, and have that courage to share that so that other women can actually learn from her mistake and not do the same thing. I think those women are just, I just have so much respect for them, because that's the tough thing, to actually acknowledge that you've made a mistake, and share it publicly, and know that and be comfortable with that. And I just think that's pretty special. And
it can be tough when you think about it. If you have to remove the whole shame, the guilt, and especially some of the women that I've worked with are quite high in in what they do, whether they're actually a celebrity of some way, shape, or form, or an executive, and they got stuff going on, but they don't have the courage to speak about it because there's this whole shame. Like, I shouldn't
Yeah.
be experiencing this because I'm in this role and people look up to me. And so they hold this information where if they did have that courage to share their story, exactly what you're saying, they would inspire and empower other women by doing so. But that
That's
in
right.
itself, there's this internal conflict that people go
Yeah.
through.
Because we're scared. We're worried about, yeah, what will someone else think of me, and will they think poorly of me, or maybe they won't want to work with me because I made this massive mistake and my business almost closed, or we all have this. But I mean, I experienced it when I had to shut my label. There was a long time where I didn't want to talk about it. People would ask about it and I would avoid the questions, or I would say, oh, it's just on hiatus, and I'd completely avoid it because I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to acknowledge that I'd failed. I didn't want to, because I felt like I'd failed. I felt a failure. And because I'd put so much hard work and time into it, I'd gotten so much support. Everyone rallied around me and had really been so supportive, and I just felt I'd failed them as well, and that I'd let people down. It took me a long time to come to a point where I could talk about it and say, you know what, I did this. I'm grateful for the lessons. And I wrote a blog post about it, actually, about how I felt fear and shame and guilt. And I did that. And I actually had quite a lot of people write to me about it afterwards, because they said, oh, that's actually good that you said that. I completely relate to that, because that's what I'm experiencing at the moment. And I'm not sure at what point do I give up, because I think that's another question people ask, at what point do I give up? So, I mean, it's tough, but it was actually quite cathartic and therapeutic for me to write that blog post, because it kind of closed that chapter, and I could see the positive experiences that came out of it and all that I learned. But it took me a while to get to that point. So I completely understand that you will have to go through your own journey and get to a point, if you feel like you failed at something, to actually be able to acknowledge it and talk about it. But I just wanted to do it because I just think that it's important to share those experiences, because we shouldn't actually be ashamed of failing, because I think, that's part and parcel of life.
Absolutely.
And that's how we learn, because failure will teach you things success never will.
And you, by you, I did actually read a couple of your stories, and your standing in your truth is really about sharing the lessons learned, because somebody else might be in that exact position as they're reading your blog or an article, and then are in that, what do I do? And when they read that, it gives them that insight or inspiration to do something, or to start moving forward in some way, shape or form.
Exactly. And hopefully they'll take something out of it that resonates with them, and it helps in some way. So I think that's why I love the league as well, because the women who share, they've got that courage to actually say, this is, I bloody stuffed up, and I hope that you can learn from my lesson, and I've come through to the other side and learn from my mistakes, people. So that's why I love the league so much. There's no airs and graces, there's no pretension. It's just real, it's raw, and people relate to that and they appreciate it, because you can't actually get that anywhere else. I've never been anywhere else where people are so open and honest.
I love that word, raw. It just it really encompasses everything that you've been talking about. It's very raw. So if you had to pick one word that describes your personal brand, what would be that one word, and why?
Oh gosh. My personal brand. What would be a one word? Oh, Catherine, there's so many words. One word that just came to me was strong. I think that I am quite a strong person. I've got quite a strong personality. And I've got strong opinions, and I always wear black. Black is the color of strength. I'd probably say strong, because I'm very much about standing tall in what you believe in, and a strength. I'd say strong.
Okay, and black in some cultures, by the way, is not just about strength, but it's also about protection.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you find that in some cultures, some of the leaders, and even in religious, they wear black. It's a way of protection, because they're in a power position. So unconsciously, you're doing that.
Oh, my wardrobe is full of black. I mean, what black outfit will I wear today?
Yes.
So we did a video shoot recently, and the girl said to me, I said, what would you like me to wear? And they said, oh, just wear color. And I said, yeah, okay, no problem. So I turned up in grey because it's the most colourful thing I had in my wardrobe. I had a grey dress. So I thought, oh, this is colourful. I've got an old Chiquita.
I'm the same. I wear a lot of black and grey. I'm the same too. People say, oh, you should wear some pink and some bright colours because you're blonde. And I just think, oh, no way. I couldn't do that.
I'm just not attracted. I love colour on other people, but it's just not for me. I'm not attracted to it. I'm not drawn to it. It's always neutral colours and mostly black. I don't know why. I just love it. Love black. Even my label most of it was black with the bits and pieces of white.
Yeah, I think that it suits you anyway. I think that too, because you've got this really beautiful hair as well. Black just sets it off even more so because it's so blonde.
Yeah, it is really blonde.
It is.
The light and the shade.
Love it. Okay, so just to wrap it up, what would be 3 golden nuggets you would give our listeners today? 3 tips.
Oh, okay. I think find a mentor if you can. I think because if you are starting out in business, it's your first business, and if you're new to that particular industry or you don't necessarily have connections in it, I would say definitely find a mentor because people really, really genuinely want to help, and if you ask them, they'll often be flattered that you've thought of them as a mentor and someone who could help them. So I definitely think find a mentor and catch up with them at least for an hour every month, and but be mindful of their time because, people in business are quite busy. So I would say, make sure if you've got some issues that you want to talk through, take your top 3 to the meeting or to the coffee with them and just go through it and ask them. So I think mentorship is really incredibly important. I think doing more with less. So I think leverage is really important. I've actually learned this lesson massively through the league because we've always had less. And had to do a lot more with it. So utilizing anything that is free, your free networks, your social media, and because we're in events, we've got quite a few events that we hold around the country. There are a lot of online portals or hubs where you can actually upload your events for free and they actually promote them to their databases. I mean, that's just such a simple thing, but it actually has helped us massively in spreading the word. So I just think about what you can do with less. You don't necessarily have to spend thousands on a massive website or a beautiful brand. All of that can come down the path. And I think also you need to find out whether before you spend so much money on your product or service, go to market first because you need to find out whether people actually want it. And that's what the girls did with the league really well. They just kind of tested waters for quite a while before they actually invested in me as their first employee to actually go, yep, I think this can work. So they did it as, they tested the waters for quite a while before they really committed to it. So I think you can actually do that quite easily without spending a great deal of money. And if you're going to, and that's where you're going to fail the most as well, by going out there and finding out this market. And then that's where you'll get the feedback from your customers and you'll tweak it accordingly. So I think those would be my tips.
Great tips. Thank you so much. So where could people find you?
Well, at the league. I've got my own blog. So I've got my blog, chiquita.com.au, or the league of Extraordinary Women.com.au, runtheworld.com.au. And then we're also holding the Female Entrepreneur Awards later this year as well. So we've got quite a few avenues to access me.
You do have a lot.
So yeah, I mean, if they want to get to me personally, probably through my blog, chiquita.com.au, or the league. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so I'm open to hearing from people.
Chiquita, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate your time and valuable information and your energy. You're full of energy, and it's quite late at night too, so you're amazing.
I've had quite a lot of chocolate today, so that's all right. But thank you for having me. I feel really, I felt really special that you asked me. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
That brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed the show, as it is my mission to reach out and inspire as many individuals like you. And one of the best ways to help us achieve this goal is by giving us a good review on iTunes. It's easy and it only takes about 10 seconds. If you have any questions or special guests that you would like to hear from, please send us an email to support@catherineplano.com.au and we will get right back to you. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Catherine Plano. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Until next week, please take care.